All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about configuration and customization. Now where we do this depends on how you're using Tailwind. Right now we're just using the CDN, so all of our config goes just in a script tag inside of a tailwind.config object. Later on, when we create an actual environment using the Tailwind CLI, you have a file for this called tailwind.config.js, and that's where you would put this configuration stuff. The way that you do it is going to be the same. It's just going to be in a different location depending on how you're using Tailwind. So for now, we're going to stick with the CDN. So there's a file called customization, and if we click on it down here, customization and config, we're actually going to see the width of the browser, and it's basically the same functionality that we did in the breakpoints section. So if we take a look at it, basically we just have some classes on the body, certain colors that pertain to certain screen sizes. And then I have an H1, which is empty because I have some JavaScript that's putting the width into that H1. And that's going to run on load and when we resize the browser. And the reason that I did this is because the first customization I want to show you is the screens or the breakpoints. So by default, they're going to be these numbers here, but you might want to change those. You know, you might want small to be 500 pixels so that it changes when you hit 500 as opposed to 640. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, when we're using the CDN, the way that we add our config values is by just adding another script tag and then doing a tailwind .config object like this. But if you're using the CLI, you're going to have a tailwind.config.js file, and basically this is going to be replaced with module.exports like that. But what we put in here is basically the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and add in here a theme object. And then in here, we're going to say screens. And we're going to replace the numbers for small, medium, large, and so on. So let's say for small, so SM, I want it to be, we'll do 550 pixels as opposed to 640, which is the default. For medium, we'll do, let's say 800 pixels. And then for large, let's do 1200, and then we'll do XL, and for that we'll do 1440 pixels. All right, so just by doing that, if I come over here now and we hit 500, oops, it's stretched, oh, I can't grab that for some reason. Why can't I grab the browser? All right, there we go. So now if we hit no, not 500, I'm sorry, 550. Once we hit 550, it turns green. And then once we hit 800, it turns blue. Then 1200. 1200, it's, I think it's dark yellow. And then 1440, we hit purple. And that's that. Now notice that the 2XL, where is it? The 2XL isn't actually kicking in because what we've done here is we've replaced the screens. If you want to extend the screens, then we could put this into an extend object. So like I could say extend, and then we could put screens in here. Okay, so now if we try this again, it should be 550. Yep, so 550, 800, and 1440 was the highest, and then it'll still go to orange because this is still gonna work, this 2XL. Okay, but I'm actually gonna put it back into just the theme and not extend it, just so you can see the difference, because we're gonna extend a bunch of other things. All right, now as far as the font family, usually you'll put that right in your theme as well. So font family, and then you can set a stack for sans. So for sans, maybe we want to use, let's say, graphic. I think that's how you spell it. And then just sans serif. And then we could copy that down. And if we wanted a stack for serif. Maybe we want, let's say, Merriweather, and then this would just be serif. All right, so you can customize your fonts or font stacks. Now, I do want to extend, so I'm going to say extend, and I want some extra colors, okay? And we do need a comma right here. So you can use any color names you want, any color types like hexadecimal or just the color name, RGB, whatever. So let's add a colors object, and we'll stick with kind of like a bootstrap thing where we have a primary color. So let's say for primary, we'll do hexadecimal FF5733, which is like a reddish orange. And then let's do a secondary, and we'll make that FFFC33, which is a yellow, I believe. Okay, so we have these custom colors now. So if I come down here, let's change the H1 to, instead of text white, we'll say text primary. And you can see it's that orange color. And these colors are going to pertain not only to text colors, but also backgrounds as well. All right, so I could do BG dash, actually, you know what, let's put a div around this, and we'll do BG dash, actually, let's do the border. We'll say BG border dash secondary. And we also need a border class. And then let's do padding, we'll say padding 6. And then let's put that H1 in here. All right, so let's see, it looks like, why did I say BG? No, it's not BG, it's just border secondary. So now you can see we have the yellow. All right, and let's say that we want, maybe P6, we want that to be something different. If we check it out, by default, P6 is padding 1.5. All right, so if we want to change that, let's see, we could go into extend, and then we can add to this spacing. So now we have the spacing object, and let's say for 6, maybe instead of what is it, 1.5 rem, maybe we want it to be 2.5 rem. So we can do that, we can change it. So as soon as I save this, you'll see that now there's more space in here because P6 is now 2.5 rem. Now you can also add more numbers to it. Like I believe this goes to 96, which is 24 rem. But let's say we want to add 128, and that'll give us, let's say, 32 rem. We can do that, and then let's come down here, and we'll just add, let's do on the div here, we'll do a margin bottom of 128. Okay, so now you can see the scroll bar here. And if we look at, let's see, if we look at this div here, and we look at MB128, margin bottom 32 rem. All right, so 128 doesn't exist. We just created that. We extended the spacing. And you can do this with many things. And the spacing doesn't just pertain to margin or padding. It pertains to width or anything where you use sizes, basically. And then same thing with border radius. Let's say we want to add a border radius 4XL, because I believe it only goes up to 3XL. So what I'll do is under spacing, we'll say border radius, and we'll say 4XL. Now since we're starting with a number and doing letters, we need to wrap this in quotes. And let's say we want that to be 2 rem. And then we'll come down here, and on the div, I'm going to do a max width small, just to shrinking it up a little, and then we'll move it to the middle with max auto. And then I'm going to add on to it rounded, because that's the border radius class, rounded dash, and we'll use our new 4XL. And there we go. All right, so it's really cool. You can do pretty much anything. You can customize anything, and it's just really simple, just using this config object. All right, and when you use like the Tailwind CLI, or you install Tailwind as a post CSS plugin, you can do more. Like you have directives and stuff, and we'll talk about that later, because you are kind of limited with the CDN. And in fact, if we look at the console, it says that the CDN shouldn't be used in production. You should use either PostCSS plugin or the Tailwind CLI. And we're going to set up an environment with the Tailwind CLI for our bigger projects in a little bit. Okay, but that is configuration. If you want to look at the docs and you want to, see more of what you can do, that's fine. In the next video, we're going to use something called dark mode, because Tailwind actually can tell if your operating system is set to dark mode. You can reflect that in your website or your UI, and you can also add a dark mode class as well. So we'll have a little switch that we'll be able to toggle. We'll write a little bit of JavaScript to do that and be able to set dark mode and light mode.